Good afternoon, everyone. In the past 25 years, I've had the opportunity to do a fair number of interesting and unusual things, although until today, I had never handed a key to a city to someone in a pirate costume. So I'd like to thank ye Mr. Crew of Gasparilla, the city of Tampa, and everyone involved in making that memorable moment happen. The opportunity to intertwine the 2018 Honda NHL All-Star Weekend activities with those of the Gasparilla Pirate Festival, which has been a Tampa Bay tradition since 1904, was one of the many elements that brought us back here for this year's celebration. We are, as I think most of you know, returning to Tampa Bay for the first time since 1999, which was actually, in and of itself, a fascinating All-Star Weekend. In 1999, little walk down memory lane, Gordie Howe was here to play in the Heroes of Hockey game with his sons Mark and Marty. Rocket Richard was here because the Canadians donated the Rocket Richard Trophy to honor the league's leading goal scorer. And that was done at center ice when this building was known as the Ice Palace. Wayne Gretzky was here for what turned out to be his final All-Star game of his playing career, and in true 99 fashion, he scored a goal and 2 assists and was, of course, named the MVP. That 1999 All-Star game also marked the first group donation to Hockey Fights Cancer. That was the initiative which the hockey community first united to support Tampa Bay forward John Cullen in his fight against non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. That All-Star Weekend, the league, the NHLPA, and all of our other constituent groups that were involved donated the first $900,000 of what has become and raised millions for research, while at the same time elevating awareness. At this moment, the Hockey Fights Cancer initiative takes on even more urgency. In the past 6 months, the NHL family has lost Brian Murray, Dave Strader to cancer, and as we play this season, Brian Boyle, Kerry Fraser, Pierre McGuire, and Eddie Olczyk are fighting hockey's most important fight. Everyone in the NHL family sends strength and best wishes to them and to everyone impacted by that dread disease. We also send comfort and condolence to the families and many friends of Red Fisher and Jim Johansson, 2 giants of the hockey community who passed away in the past few days. One other thing about All-Star in 1999, the other day somebody showed me a transcript of my media availability back then, and one of the items I mentioned was that we were working with Nassau County in New York to get a new home for the Islanders. You know, some things just take a little more time. As we enter the 2018 Honda NHL All-Star Weekend, the Islanders are on track to build their new home, and that's one of many highlights of this season to date. On the ownership front, we welcome Tom Dundon to Carolina as the majority owner. Tom is not wasting a moment getting started with the Hurricanes, and we are delighted to have him. And at the same time, we thank Peter Karmanos for his many contributions to the league and to hockey in the Triangle. On the ice, I don't know what superlatives are left to describe the start of the Vegas Golden Knights. It's been incredible for the fans of the Golden Knights and their city. As you all know, they lead the Western Conference in points and goal differential. Before the season started, we were hopeful that the expansion team, the Golden Knights, would be playing meaningful games into March of their first season. And based on the first 48 games, it may be reasonable to think they'll be playing meaningful games into March and beyond. Elsewhere, we can't mention great starts without, since we're here in Tampa, mentioning the Lightning, who mounted the best start in the franchise's history. The Boston Bruins entered the All-Star break with points in 18 consecutive games. The Colorado Avalanche just had a 10-game winning streak and already have exceeded their point total for all of last season. We played 2 games in Stockholm, Sweden, and our first games in China with the energetic support of our partner ORG Packaging. Mr. Joe of ORG is with us here this weekend, and we look forward to continuing to build on this important relationship. Looking ahead to next season, you already know the schedule of outdoor games. The Chicago Blackhawks and Boston Bruins will play the 2019 Bridgestone NHL Winter Classic at Notre Dame Stadium, and the Philadelphia Flyers and Pittsburgh Penguins will be playing in the Coors Light NHL Stadium Series at Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia. I'm pleased to announce that the 2019 NHL All-Star Weekend will be hosted by San Jose on January 26, 27, 2019. And of course, we're looking forward to bringing the All-Star festivities back to San Jose for the first time since 1997. Brief update on next season's international plans. In mid-September, we intend to travel 2 teams to China to play 2 preseason games and continue the 2018 ORG NHL China games. Details are being worked out with the Players Association. Discussions are ongoing. So that's all I can give you right now on China. That is a work in progress. In late September, the New Jersey Devils and Edmonton Oilers each will play 1 preseason game overseas against local teams. The Devils will play in Switzerland and the Oilers in Germany, and then they will play each other in their regular season opener in Sweden. In addition, the Winnipeg Jets and Florida Panthers will head to Finland in early November for 2 regular season games that will continue our global series. We are still finalizing a lot of details on the specific cities, arenas, and dates for these games, and we will keep you posted as developments develop. We are extremely pleased to be creating continuity in our international visits. You cannot develop an international strategy or establish a presence for the business without these events and without these games. And so the more we can share NHL hockey through events with our fans overseas, the more original content and language-specific material we can provide on our NHL.com sites, which are done in a number of languages. The 2017 SAP NHL Global Series, for example, was a groundbreaking event for our Swedish site, NHL.com/SV. It provided real-time coverage of our games in Stockholm and allowed native Swedish fans to experience an NHL event even more closely than ever before. Live streams of the Colorado and Ottawa practices in Stockholm generated a reach of nearly 1 million people through the site's homepage and on Facebook, the highest reach for a single event since the launch of the site in 2011. Before Bill Daly and I take your questions, I want to particularly thank Mayor Buckhorn, the City of Tampa, the Tampa Bay Sports Commission, and Hillsborough County for all they've done to welcome the NHL family for this great weekend. The combination of all-star events and Gasparilla has created a boatload, pun intended, of logistical challenges, but all of them were overcome through the collaboration of these groups, and we are greatly appreciative of the tremendous cooperation we received. And special thanks to a special owner, Jeff Vinnick, who has put so much of himself into the Lightning, into this building, Amalie Arena, into the development of downtown Tampa, and the growth of hockey here. We would not be here today, and the Lightning certainly wouldn't be in first place and consistently sold out without him. And we so greatly value Jeff's many commitments with his wife Penny to the community through a number of projects, including Community Heroes. What they do for this community is astonishing. It is just fabulous, and we're truly thrilled and fortunate to have them as part of the NHL family. With that, we're happy to take your questions.
Kevin Allen, USA Today.
Where are you? We're looking into the lights.
There
Okay.
we go. All right. This is for either Gary or Bill or both. You were talking about the Las Vegas Golden Knights, the Vegas Golden Knights, and we all know there were many factors for their success, but first and foremost is the more favorable expansion draft setup. I wonder if you could sort of take us back when this was being discussed, and where you thought was going to happen. Did it work out the way you thought? And more importantly, have you seen enough positive results to commit to doing this if you're going to expand moving ahead? Like, this is the way we're going to do it.
I have no doubt, going in reverse order, I have no doubt that if there's going to be another expansion team, they are going to insist on having the same expansion terms. I think that's crystal clear. I think George McPhee did an outstanding job of using the rules. We knew the team would be better. The goal was to make the team competitive at its inception, and there's a great mix of talent that's bonded very well. I think it's clear they hired the right coach for the right time and the right group. And I also, and I've said this regularly, what has gone on in Las Vegas in the wake of a terrible tragedy, I think, has this team playing on a bit of a mission. They've been part of the unity and healing of Las Vegas since the shootings in early October. I was there opening night, which was extraordinarily emotional, and it is crystal clear that the players who were so great in terms of going into the community and being part of the healing process, that the bonding that has gone on is something that's extraordinary in this short a period of time. And I think on some level the players are on a bit of a mission.
I think the owners and the clubs also deserve a lot of credit for supporting the expansion draft rules. Certainly it was our objective to make the expansion team stronger than it had been traditionally or historically. And our owners on our executive committee in the first instance, and then ultimately the Board of Governors embraced that as an objective, and I think we were pretty successful.
And to add on to what Bill said, we haven't gotten any negative pushback. I think most clubs are marveling at what's been accomplished.
Gary, I'm sure that the original plan probably would have been to be able to announce more on the China games, given that you announced the European games. Could you address what is sort of holding that up at this point?
As you know, we do events jointly with the Players Association, international events jointly with the Players Association. We partner together, and we need to make sure as we go through this process that both sides are comfortable with all the details. And rather than rush things or even announce something unilaterally, we want to make sure our partners and we are in sync.
There are obviously more
something about that?
More logistical challenges associated with international games and international travel, and taking a little longer to work out than we would have hoped.
Gary?
Yes.
Ken Campbell from the Hockey News. Hi, Gary. I guess it would be fair to say that there's been a bit of confusion lately regarding goaltender interference. Probably in the last week, you've had two of the young, great players in this league essentially show up officials because of it. Wondering where you sit on that, whether it's something that can be regimented, tightened up. Are we going to see any consistency on this?
It's a good question, and I'm actually glad you asked it. We just had a meeting. Coley Campbell put it together with hockey operations, the officiating department. There were a couple officials there. There were some coaches who happened to be in town, some general managers, and guys who work with Coley in hockey operations. When you say a bit of confusion, that's right. I mean, overall, the system works, but I think we've gotten to the point where everybody's overthinking the review. The intention, particularly on goaltender interference, is, did you miss something? Was there a glaring corner? Not, can you search for something that might overturn the call? And I think the consensus of the meeting, although Bill can jump in because I had to leave a little early, was really more, we need to give a refresher, and we're going to send a memo to the officials. Take a good look, quick look, but don't search it to death. If the presumption should be the call on the ice was good, unless you have a good reason to overturn it, and you shouldn't have to search for a good reason.
The language of the rule is 78.7, I think. It was actually pretty clear. And we refreshed everyone in the room with respect to the language of the rule and the intention of the rule, and that's going to be re-emphasized to the officials.
Good.
So both of you, Mark Herman from Newsday. Speaking of Nassau County,
Yes.
what is your assessment of Nassau Coliseum and what has to be done to make it NHL ready, even on a part-time basis?
I actually went on a tour of it last week. There are a variety of things that have to be upgraded, whether it's the locker rooms and training facilities and the like. That's something we're in touch with the Islanders on. The Nassau Coliseum has been given a nice refresh in terms of the way it looks, but it's still the Nassau Coliseum. So anything that may or may not take place there certainly would have to be on a temporary basis.
No, nothing to add. We had a playing environment subcommittee meeting today, and both Chris King and Dan Craig were there, and they briefed the group on some of the things that need to be done. Not major fixes, but to the commissioner's point, it's not a long-term facility.
Is the esports league happening?
You mean for us?
Yes.
Our goal is to unveil something before the end of the regular season, which would have a series of competitions using the EA game, and we'll have more details when we're ready to launch.
Chris Daniels from King TV in Seattle, so you can probably guess what question is coming. There's a report today that the Oakview Group is very close to sending in their paperwork for an expansion franchise. If that is the case, what is the timeline going forward? And also, as far as the league is concerned, what is the additive quality for the existing franchise in Vancouver to have a team down the road in Seattle as far as you're concerned?
Well, Vancouver says they're very excited about the possibility of having a geographic rival. The good people in Seattle who are in pursuit potentially of an expansion franchise have told us that they are working on the expansion application, and they anticipate being ready to file it in the not-too-distant future. The timetable in terms of filing an expansion application, doing a season ticket drive, is largely up to them. We can respond to the extent that we're getting the information we need on a timely basis, whatever that timetable is, so that we can go through the processes that we have. And so when you next ask me what are the attributes of Seattle, hopefully we'll have done enough homework, if this is moving forward, to be able to answer that question.
Do you think it's mid-year of 2018?
I don't want to project, because then the clock's running, and this is more about process than timing.
Gary, your position on concussions and CTE has been pretty clear. I just wanted to know why you came to that conclusion on concussions. Why
Well,
that is your position.
actually, it's not my position. It's the position of the medical community and the people, medical and scientific, that advise us. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. I only know what I'm told, including out of the most recent consensus statement on the International Conference on Sports Concussions in Berlin that was held. So you can read those reports. I only repeat in response to a question what those reports say. I'm not the one who's making the determination.
Hi, Gary. Scott Morgan, Roth Detroit Monitor. The Olympics are starting pretty soon.
Yes.
I know there's no NHL participation at the moment. Do you foresee that changing down the line?
I don't have an answer to that question. The fact is, we find, the clubs find, the owners find that the Olympics are very disruptive on our season, and for that and a whole host of the reasons that we've been over repeatedly over the last year or so, it didn't make sense for us to attend. Could that circumstance change at some point in the future? I suppose so, but it's not something that we're currently contemplating.
For Gary or Bill, Chris Johnson from Sportsnet. Just curious, is there any more discussion on the World Cup and its future and how that might align down the road?
That, like international games in China, is something that we need to do, and seek to do in collaboration with the Players Association. I think we'd all like to get another World Cup scheduled because the last one in Toronto was so successful. But we've got lots of things that we're collaborating on, and sometimes they take time.
Good evening, gentlemen. It's from German Hockey News. Can you already say in which city the exhibition game from the Edmonton Oilers will be, and also how important is the German market for the NHL?
We can't say which city. We have a good sense of where it's going to be, but all the logistics and details of the games will be released at a later time. We think the German market is a tremendous opportunity for the National Hockey League, NHL players, in terms of making an impact in the German market. It's a great marketplace. Has a hockey tradition, has a hockey culture. We think we can build on that and add to it. Have a great relationship with the German Ice Hockey Federation, great relationship with the German Ice Hockey League. We consider them cooperative in this effort for sure.
Gary, Jeff Chaumont, right on your left. Jeff Chaumont from the Journal de Montréal. It's only 2 hours away from Quebec City. So we received the classic question about Seattle, now the classic one about Quebec. Is it still possible for the people of Quebec to be dreaming about a team one day?
We're not currently considering an application. I don't want to make any promises or definitive conclusions, but at the current time, we're not focused on a team in Quebec City. I'm not saying that will never be our focus, but I don't want to make any promises that could be misconstrued.
Mark Lazarus, Chicago Sun-Times. With the possibility of another West Coast team becoming more realistic, have you considered realignment situations? Would it be drastic? Would it be subtle?
We have a process to go through if we're going to go through an expansion evaluation process, and that would be one of the factors. Although, based on the numbers and the geography, off the top of my head, that doesn't strike me as being one of the more complicated issues if expansion's going forward.
Gary, is there a sense of a timeline for how long the Coyotes can be in Glendale and not have a permanent solution arena-wise in terms of their existence?
Ownership continues to work on the possibilities for a new arena, and ultimately the strength or resilience or persistence of a club depends on ownership's willingness to continue the pursuit. And so my hope and expectation is that things can be worked out in Arizona, and we're going to continue to focus on it that way. See, now that Carolina is no longer one that everybody's speculating was going to move, and as I told you, they weren't going to, I guess everybody's now going to see who they can focus on next. I'm not being critical. My only point is I wouldn't focus on Arizona moving right now, or anytime soon, or maybe ever. So we're not misconstrued here.
Gary, Joe Smith, Tampa Bay. Oh, over here. Sorry.
Oh, there you are.
Joe Smith, Tampa Bay Times here. I know we still have a game to go, but overall did you feel how Tampa has kind of responded or to this, having the All-Star game and the Gasparilla here at the same time?
It's been sensational. There's a great vibe. There's a great buzz. The number of people who have come up to me and said, it's so great to have hockey in Tampa. I'm a season ticket holder. I go to a lot of games. And then doing it with Gasparilla, as I said, opening my remarks, that was unusual in a very good way, and it's a lot of fun. There's a great vibe here, and Tampa is known for its hospitality, hosting big events. We're thrilled to be here, and we're delighted with the weekend.
Craig Costance with The Athletic to your left.
Oh,
low.
Yes. We're staring into lights. That's
right.
why.
You don't have to look. Do you... with the expected expansion, would that impact?
Whoa. What do you mean expected expansion?
We already moved beyond Seattle.
Okay.
Who's the 33rd team? No.
Tell us what else we're going to do.
What impact would that have on a potential playoff format or making any adjustments to the current format?
I know there are lots of people who think we should put more teams in the playoffs. I'm not one of them. And I think we have a very meaningful competitive regular season, and I like it. And if we were to add a 32nd team, as I sit here today, not having given it a lot of thought, so I can only get myself into trouble, I don't think I'd be in favor of making any changes in the number of teams that make the playoffs. As I said, I haven't given that any thought. Okay. But I don't think we need more teams in the playoffs. But good. Anybody else? Going. Enjoy the weekend, and thank you all for being here.